Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. You may have seen the notices from Google that new analytics are coming, aka GA4, but there's no need to panic because we're here to help. Today, Allie Peters, Senior Product Manager, and Kyle Rickhoff, Digital Architect, will walk you through what changes to expect, when to expect them, and what you can do to prepare.
Thanks everyone for joining. We're really excited for today's presentation. First, I just want to say, if the pop-up in your Google Analytics console stating that Universal Analytics is going away has been giving you anxiety, I'm here to tell you that you're not alone. The analytics world has seen a lot of changes, but I'm happy to tell you that the changes are for the better. TownNews understands that this analytics update may seem very overwhelming to your business, which is why we've brought in Kyle Rickhoff, who's an analytics specialist. He has a strong focus on the media industry and a track record of measuring performance indicators according to custom business goals. So today, Kyle's going to walk us through the history of Google Analytics, give you an overview of the differences between UA and GA4, and also talk about things your company should consider during this time. So before we get going, we're going to do something a little bit more interactive than usual. We'd like each of you to participate in the poll that Cherry is going to launch shortly. The purpose of this poll is to anonymously, don't worry, we won't see your name, measure the level of expertise of the people on this call. So if you choose number 1, that means you're a light user and you're aware that Google Analytics is on your site and that you're collecting analytics and you probably know your page views. If you select number 2, that means you're a medium user and you may have access to the analytics. You have a report that you commonly view. You either get into it or it's provided for you. Basically, you're using data more actively in your organization. Or number 3, Google Analytics is your bread and butter. This is what your company uses to make all your data decisions, and you know what you're doing in GA. So if you could fill out that poll in the next few minutes, Kyle will kind of review the results a little bit in a while. But in the meantime, I'm going to go kick it off to Kyle to start with kind of a background of Google Analytics. So off to you, Kyle.
Awesome, Allie. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for everyone for joining today. As mentioned, there's an intimate launch of Google Analytics here. This is going to be more of a true rebuild, a paradigm shift in your analytics. This is not a facelift or new features like we've seen in the past. So Google Analytics started with acquiring Urchin. You might be familiar with UTM. That's where the U comes from. That was almost 20 years ago. From there, they added async. So this is how the code was placed on your page for tracking analytics. Google used to recommend it was at the bottom, and then they moved it to the top. So just through that little technology change, people saw more traffic simply because it was being recognized different. It was being collected more completely. And then in 2013, that was the big facelift for Universal Analytics, Google Analytics. Going through the rest of the presentation, when we mention UA, we're talking about the version of Google Analytics you're using now, Universal Analytics. That's when they added more features around segmentation, but then ultimately added mobile. So you've got a website view, and then you've got an app view. There are different measurements within that, and GA4 is going to resolve some of that for you here in a bit. And then for the past stretch here, some folks have seen Google Web Plus app. That was the beta name for Google Analytics 4. And then earlier this year, they made the announcement that they're forcing a migration on us to go to Google Analytics 4 by next July. However, there's actions that we can take today. As mentioned, why is this happening kind of right now? A lot's changed since 2013. how readers interact with our brands across platform. They are on apps, they are on OTT devices, they're on our website, they're on multiple versions of our website. So it starts to recognize the consumer and all the touch points they have with us, rather than the individual devices and siloing that. A lot of the tech that we use to build our websites and design our websites have changed. So the collection method on how we gather user information has come across. You're very aware of GDPR, California, and a few other states where privacy concerns have really nipped the heels of Google and Facebook. So they're pushing some of that back onto us. However, that allows us to use some of our own technology to identify an individual user across multiple devices. So there's some pros where you have some control there. Data governance and data management planning. Overall, data has been an expanding field across all industries for the past 5 years or so. You might have hired a data analyst, a data scientist. So some of those things are baked into GA4, including some automated BI and ML tools. And then ultimately, e-com tracking models looked at what is each action somebody did. Did they view a thing? Did they click it? Did they add it to the cart? And looking at the entire like consumer journey from awareness all the way through purchase. We're going to be doing the same thing in GA4, but we'll be looking at content, email registration, or if you're a newspaper publisher or you're selling subscriptions, it'll be part of that as well. So a lot's changed. So we're gonna hit on kind of like what are the differences between Google Analytics, GA4, and UA, the one you're using today. Universal Analytics looks at a individual user. So this is often the device that they're using. And then when someone visits the site, they do certain things within a session, a website visit. They view a page and then they sign up for an email. Because they signed up for email, they'll visit your site again. And then maybe they'll play a video, complete a video, and they'll visit again. On the GA4 side, all these little interactions somebody does is an event. Sessions still exist, but ultimately we're looking at, are the consumers taking the actions we want? So it kind of eliminates a layer. Yes, Sherry? Let's
take a moment and talk about the poll. So
yes,
we've shared the results. And it looks like almost half of you are medium users. So thank you everyone who participated.
Universal Analytics, the word event is tied to a certain feature within it. Obviously, that's where you see like your video plays, notifications. So that is like the kind of the older term for it. When we talk events in GA4, it is anything and everything. If somebody clicks something, if they scroll so far down the page, if they are just watching a video and they're just sitting there not clicking anything and they hit 25% of your video, that can be considered an event. Within an event, there are parameters. These are the descriptive elements of what happened in that video play. What was the title of the video? What was the location of it? What device was somebody on? How long is the video? All these descriptive elements are underneath an event as a parameter. So they're both called events in UA and GA4, but they mean different things. And then here's an example of a video event. On the left, category was video. The action was play, and the title is the title of the video. And maybe there was just, it was clicked once. Here on a video play, because it exists, that is increments the count. A video was played, and then you can see a lot more descriptive elements on where was the video played, what type of asset was it, what type of video player was being used. So we're not going to go through every one of these items. The deck will be shared with you after the call. But kind of like the big questions and some of the more visible things within GA4 that we want to highlight is the account structure. So when you log into GA, your property, probably your brand has an account. And then you click over to property, and then you were able to create views. So there were 3 elements: account, property, view. And the view would be the one you would select to actually view what were the page views. And you might have a couple different ones to filter out real estate websites, bot traffic. In GA4, you have accounts and properties, and it stops right there. And your property within it has data streams to say, pull in the website, pull in the app, pull in your weather app, maybe pull in a third-party service that you're using. All of that is now in one property. That gives you a universal, that gives you a view of all of your interactions someone can take with your brand. That really kind of goes into the cross-platform piece, is that it takes your website and your separate app property and combines it into one, because we're looking at it more holistically. And then ultimately, KPI tracking. Setting up goals was a little more challenging in Universal Analytics. Within GA4, you select what events matter to you. Is it that they read 50% of a story, that they watched 75% of a video? This will also goes to things like landing pages, where you have a micro conversion. You know, if somebody signs up for a newsletter, this is a qualified lead for a subscription. They are a lead to send contesting information to. So that matters. Here, that would be considered a conversion, that someone landed on your thank you page because they registered. Sometimes it's just really high level. You want audience growth. So your conversions might be the first time somebody opens an app. You haven't recognized that they visited using a native app. They actually opened it. You can consider that a conversion. They are on the path that you want them to take. There are a few things around customization, data modeling within Google Analytics. The one I'd want to highlight that came up on some previous calls, there's reporting within GA4 that can be shared across your entire organization. That can be collected, set up in, here's a set of reports for marketing, set of reports for finance, set of reports for executives, and a separate one for reporters. And you'd be able to share that across the organization. So what to do to prepare for GA4? We're going to talk about planning for the majority of the remainder of the call, and then ultimately compare your data. This is going to be different. We'll talk about things that you might be measuring now, like sessions, user counts. These numbers are going to change because of how it's collected and then how you're reporting that. And then ultimately, the roadmap for adopting GA4 within your organization. So today is a great time to set up what is your plan? What are the goals, the things you want to measure to convert, and including that within your GA4 setup. Allie will talk more about some basic setup tools within TownNews' environment. Once GA4 is set up, you're going to look for data validation, doing that comparison. What looks different? Are you capturing everything that you want? Did you maybe forget a third-party vendor? And just kind of validating your implementation. July of next year, collection ends on your current UA. At that point, you should be migrated over. You should be using the new GA4. If you're on a paid version, it extends out to October. And then 2 years from now, that data will no longer be able to be accessed in the way it is now. There'll probably be some changes with future Google announcements, but that's the timeline. So continue to use Universal Analytics for your day-to-day traffic reports, everything you're doing now, year-over-year traffic. I wouldn't recommend a big change on that today. There is no rush to do it, but do start setting it up. Do start training. So when you hit that deadline of July, or you've got comfortability before, you can start using GA4 for your business needs. So what are things you should consider? We're going to talk a little bit more about planning. Who needs to be involved? Numbers drive your business. How many people are viewing it? How many ad impressions are being delivered? What types of stories do certain consumers like? Does that inform your newsroom? So across the board, there needs to be awareness about this GA4 change. Don't just surprise people with numbers look different or a report looks different, especially when we're going through and selecting KPIs. And we'll talk more about that in another slide. Besides being involved with it at a high level stakeholder, who needs to be involved in this process, both on the technical implementation, communicating the change across your organization, even if it's just little updates, because there is somebody, a reporter, a sales rep, who goes into Google Analytics once a month and is seeing this big warning, letting them know that it's being addressed and you've got a plan. And then ultimately set up training for your staff. So when we go into kind of defining why we're tracking these things, this is that executive stakeholder piece. Do create like a strategic alignment plan. What is the company's pillars? What are the things that are top priorities across the entire organization? And then start breaking them down. Don't go in right away saying we want 50% video plays. There should be a business reason where a publisher, station manager knows why that's appearing on their Google Analytics reports. And then you can start breaking down what are those individual pieces, how many video plays, what is the total user count on your site? Do you want growth? Do you want to maintain? Do you want to increase app adoption? And then ultimately set up an actual target for that. Setting the target is not part of GA4, but it will be part of your dashboarding exercise as well. That's so everyone on the team has consensus on, did this work? Did this hit our expectations? Rather than kind of, we'll see what happens and then we'll say if it's good or not. It's good to have that kind of communication ahead of time. And then ultimately define what doesn't need to be migrated over. This is not the time to say we used to do it in UA, Google Analytics today, and we want to do it in the new version. Take every one of those examples and then have a conversation about it, break it out. Does this still make sense for a business, or has it just been always on a report? So we've just kept it on the report. We've never really reflected, why are we showing this to our reporters? Why are we showing these to our sales rep? Or why is this important for our ownership? With that, Allie's going to talk more about TownNews development on implementing GA4.
All right. Thanks, Kyle. Hopefully you all learned a few things on this call and kind of understand at least the basic differences from UA to GA4. So we do have a couple next steps for you. TownNews will need to collect your GA4 property for ingestion into blocks. And there's kind of two paths that you can take to get to this. The first one is kind of the straightforward approach that we would normally recommend. So first off, you got to find your GA account administrator, and they need to create a GA4 property. Then when you have that property, we would have you open up a support ticket and give us the property so we can add it to your site. And I want to be sure this option is going to give you kind of the out of the box data collection that TownNews has put together that drives the type of reporting that you get from us, such as data insights or basic analytics. So if you've identified yourself or your company as a light GA user in the poll, which was option 1, if you're a number 1, this first solution is probably going to work great for you. You're going to inherit everything that TownNews has set up for you. But if you've identified yourself or your company as a medium user or a super user in the poll, which was option 2 and 3, you might want to consider some implementation packages that TownNews is now able to offer to you through Kyle. So let's take a look at those. So here's a couple, the overview of services that TownNews and Kyle has put together to help you through this analytics transition. One thing I want to say before I dive into them is that all of these packages are standalone or they can be bundled together. You can do one or you can do multiple if you want. The first is a GA4 setup. This is implementing the GA4 setup for you on your behalf. Kyle's team goes in and does it for you. I would recommend this package if you're using any external TownNews products that you need tagged, or you have some custom properties that you would like to have set up but have limited resources to do so. This package kind of starts at about $1,000 is implementing it for you. The one that I highly recommend of this group is the business alignment. Kyle kind of mentioned engaging your executives of your company to determine what goals you have. There's some planning exercises where your team can determine the goals, and Kyle can help you set up the KPIs that you need to track to make sure you're measuring your performance towards those business goals. Another package we have is data validation. That was kind of highlighted on the timeline that Kyle had. So once your data is flowing, this package assists you in determining the difference of your UA results and your GA4 results. So you can understand when you're looking at year-over-year reporting where the variances might be. And then the last grouping is additional training, which is this is completely custom for your business. If your team needs training on GA4, if you need some custom reports or dashboards, this package would be the package for you. So those are kind of the packages that we have out of the box that TownNews and Kyle put together for you, and a general overview of the differences between UA and GA4. We're hoping that you feel a little bit better about things, or at least a little bit more knowledgeable about it. So with that, I think, Cherry, we will open it up to questions, right?
We do have some questions. As a reminder, you can put those in the question box. Is GA4 going to work with any plugins such as Google Sheets?
So this is kind of I'll address this as like a bigger kind of question. Even some Google products have not fully integrated with GA4, and some of your other third-party vendors outside TownNews might not be fully ready for that transition. So working with a few folks, it's been kind of what is the best path forward and when is the timeline to have that. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your migration plan, is work with your technology vendor to say, do you have GA4 integration available? Specifically for the Google Sheets question here, I would even recommend just looking at Data Studio, which is a free Google product where you can directly pull in your GA4 information.
Is GA4's data collection method similar to the Facebook Pixel server-side conversion API?
That is a number 3 experience question. So thanks for that, Tom. There is server-side tagging available through GTM where you can add your GA4 or your UA property. So that might be a little high level for that call, but I would look into GTM server-side options that were announced recently.
Can you explain how to have multiple data streams on one property? In GA4, I have different properties for the site, Now app, OTT app, and Weather app. Should I set up one property with those as streams instead?
Yes. The answer is yes. So when you create a property, you can go into settings and then you can select multiple data streams. Yeah, I believe you can select up to 20 although the kind of the recommendation is 10, but that allows you to have a unified view of that one property to look at your web app, OTT, weather app, it all be in one place. And then within that, you could create ultimately like segments to say, I only want to look at app traffic. But this is a great way in one report to say how many people were interested in the flooding story. There are other ways to set up an account where you keep them as separate properties, but then you create a roll-up property. So you could keep them separate and then as data streams, separate properties, and then create one that adds them all together. And depending on what accounts you're on, there's some hit level benchmarks, and that might increment some things if you're on a paid version.
If we implement GA4 through Google Tag Manager, should we still send our GA4 ID to TownNews? Allie, that might be a question for you.
I might tag team Kyle on that one.
It depends on how your tag manager was implemented with TownNews. So check with, submit a ticket and verify what method you're using. It is either through the Blocks admin console or your GTM was added via templates. This matters. So verify the implementation. Currently, if you go into Blocks and you go to settings, Google, if you see tag manager there and that is selected, throw your GA4 into your tag manager. Or if you go there and you just see your UA is selected and you're just currently providing TownNews your Google Analytics UA, provide the ID. But when you go to submit your GA4 ID, your support rep will check that and verify the best implementation for you. But yeah, just a word on caution how your tag manager was applied to TownNews.
Are packages, the implementation packages, for a single site, or could we use it for a group?
You can use it for a group. It really kind of depends on how you view your company. I've worked with ones that like to have individual brands because they got a radio station in this market, a television station in this market. Others like a unified view to see what's happening across the company. So it really kind of depends on your organization. Do not make, I'd say this about any flat platform, but I'll say it about Google Analytics. Don't try to fit their mold. What is the view of your company? How do you approach discussions and reports about your company? And make Google Analytics do that. Don't try to transform how you view your business to fit a Google Analytics model. It has that flexibility. So approach it that way. How do you organize and then apply that to Google Analytics? And that would be how you do your settings, how many properties you have. Do you want to combine markets or not? Do you want to combine apps or not? Go with that approach.
Great. Will Blocks ads need to be fully transitioned to Google Ad Manager?
So I can take that one. Blocks Ad Manager is a feature with our Blocks CMS. And I think at this point, we recommend you guys going with GAM. There's a lot more features and programmatic ads that can flow in through there. So there's a lot more monetization packages. So that's the one that we would recommend going with. It doesn't mean you have to do it right now, but we are kind of evaluating Blocks Ad Manager right now, and we'd recommend you move to GAM.
What recommendations can you offer in terms of utilizing GA4 to maximize targeting due to third-party cookie deprecation?
This is where we've got a great opportunity when you're setting up your GA account. You can recognize individual logged in users. So you can get that user ID that they're logging into Blocks for and send that to your GA, which then if they're logging into the app, logging on their phone, logging on to their work phone, any type of device, that's a great way to identify an individual and what they're using across all platforms. When you go to your setup, there are options to include Google signals, whether or not to have kind of like those personalized ad tracking. So when you go into the settings, you'll see that. But I would highlight that is use your own user identification to recognize people across multiple devices. That is the best way. That is a consumer saying, this is me, rather than infer that we believe this is the same person because they're using, same device, same IP address, some of those things that are variable.
Is the data that you get from GA4 going to be sampled, or will it be more real time?
Good question. It processes a lot faster. So there is a lot of real-time functionality within GA4, more than you have on your current UA piece. It is not a replacement for a live tracking tool such as Chartbeat, Parsley. Obviously, those do come at a high cost right now, but I would not use it for live tracking, but it does process faster, yes.
All right. Thank you again for all of your questions, everyone. This is great. What can people do to get started? Can you remind us what they should do next?
Yes, you should determine if you're going to take the simple out-of-the-box approach with basic TownNews tagging. From there, you would need to get your GA4 property and submit it in a support ticket. Additionally, if you're interested in the implementation packages offered, new to TownNews, it's a new thing we're doing through Kyle. Obviously, you can see how much experience he has from this call. If you're interested in that, you can also open a support ticket and kind of let us know that you're interested, and we will get you routed through the process and connect you with him for those services. So enter a ticket. We're looking forward to your GA4 property.
Kyle, if you want to go to the next slide. Again, you can find documentation. There's many ways to stay connected with us. You can find documentation at help.townnews.com. You can contact support at 800-293-9576 or support.townnews.com. You can reach out to the community and see what other people are doing for their planning and their goals and who they're including at community.townnews.com. You can check the status of our servers. It's townnews.status.io, and follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Allie, Kyle, this was great. Do you have anything that you want to add?
I'm good. Thank you all for attending. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks for your time and attention.
Thank you again, everyone, and we'll see you at the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.